My name is Rikke Schultz. I'm from Denmark, and I've been a teacher for more than 40 years. I have been working with formal education and non-formal education. I have been educating teachers, and I have been doing research work in the field of online education and teaching materials and other things which has relation to learning processes. And I look very forward to present the article I have written for this conference. And I have called the article Teaching Why, What and How. And so why that? I think that the question why, what and how is the most important question a teacher needs to ask to the curriculum before introducing it to the students. It's important to find out why is this curriculum important for the students to know, what is it about, and how can my student work with it. The why question is also the motivation question. It presents a great challenge in practice for both the students and the educators, because in a holistic view of education, it implies that it's not only what you need to know, but it's also what is needed to know to become a human being. And this, of course, raises the question, what is a human being? And to answer that, Ken Wilber have made this model to define how we can imagine a human being. And he says a human being has an inner side and an outer side. The inner world is the thoughts, it's the feeling, it's our development lines, but it's also the culture we are part of and where we are belonging. The outer world, that is our behavior, the way of physical health and how we present ourselves. It is what other people see, but it is also our family, our education, our work. It's also what other people know about us. If we take this into consideration, when the educator meets the student will have some question, maybe not ask questions, but questions like, educator, how do you see me? Educator, how can you support me in what I'm expected to learn? Educator, how am I belonging? And educator, can you show me what or how or who I can be? So the why question answers the essential meaning of a given curriculum. Why is this knowledge important for my personal development, my life path? Why is this knowledge important for the people who mean something to me? And how will they acknowledge that I am learning this? How is this not? Well, how will it help me to become part of the communities I seek? And how is this knowledge important for our society to develop in the direction we want it to be? Having answered those questions, the teacher can start studying what is the curriculum about. And the curriculum must take into account the student's culture, religion, ethnicity, language, etc. Else, it will not be possible for the student to mirror he or her in the content. Curriculum transfer knowledge from one generation to another. Curriculum must speak to both the mind and the heart, and curriculum must be enlightening. Talking about enlightenment, we need to examine where do the light come from. And we can say there are four sources of light: the light from above and the light from below, the light from outside and the light from inside. And if we start with the light from outside, the knowledge, and if we look at the vertical axis, we can see that the knowledge is what we already know from our ancestors. And in our tradition, we divide knowledge into art and science. And we can learn about art by studying it. And we can expand it through storytelling, dance, music, painting, etc. And through reflection and meditation, we can reach a higher understanding of what art is. If we look at the scientific methods, we can use the scientific methods to get to know more about nature and people. And we can expand our knowledge about nature and people by experiences and creations. Albert Einstein is often quoted for this statement: education is not the learning of fact, but the training of the mind to think. To develop critical thinking and common sense, factual knowledge plays an important role. Therefore, information must be fact-based and reflective. When we reflect our knowledge of art and science, we create a connection between what we learn and our daily life experiences. And we do it in a way that corresponds to our human values, our view of nature, and our spiritual belief. So after we have decided the relevance of the curriculum, we have to focus on how to teach. And in that sense, I think it's very important to state that there's no one size fit all teaching methods. Basically, learning consists of 4 processes: the input, the processing, the output, and the feedback. The educator is responsible for the input. The processing takes place in the student's head. The student delivers an output, and the educator gives feedback on the student's output. If we want the student to learn to think, open assignment is a strong tool. And we can think of open assignments at 4 levels. And if I want to give an example, we want the student to know about Gandhi's life and Gandhi's work. So on level 1, we can ask the student to write an essay, a poem, or make a play about Gandhi's life and work. At level 2, the student can be asked to imagine what they would do in Gandhi's place in a specific situation. At level 3, the student are asked to make a comparative analysis of the view of Gandhi and Tagore using a given analyzing model. And at level 4, the student are asked to develop an analyzing model that explains the differences and similarities in Gandhi's and Tagore's view on life and science. If we look closer into these levels of learning, we can see this model can help us to understand it. At the first level, tell me about, the student will make research and repeat what they have found, and they will gain knowledge. At the second level, imagine that you were, what would you then do? The student will still make research, but also will have to imagine and to solve problems, and that will create meaning. At the third level, the student will compare, analyze, and express with a given model. And the learning process will still be research, but now also to compare and to analyze and conclude, and the student will gain wisdom. At the fourth level, we ask the student to develop his own analyzing model. And this means that the student will need to both research, to create, to compare, and to express. And that could reach to some universal knowledge. If we look at the feedback process, The purpose of the feedback process is to make sure that the student has got it right. When students gather knowledge on their own, there is a risk of fundamental mistakes. A helpful tool for the educator is peer review. By involving other students in the feedback process, one group of students' output becomes input for another group of students. The student will learn to discuss and reflect each other's output. Ultimately, however, it is important that the educator also provides feedback. An important thing in education is vital learning environment with a lot of oxygen for the student so they can breathe. And research has shown that properly closed challenges is the most important driving force in the learning process. If the challenge is too small, the student loses motivation. If the challenge is too demanding, the student considers himself as too stupid to learn anything. But beyond this academic challenge, human relationships are the most important oxygen-giving process in the classroom. And it's not just about the relationship between educator and students, it's also the relationship between students themselves. If we want a vital learning environment, we want the student to cooperate instead of compete. Finally, I'll just mention what my teacher always said. Education is accepting that the next generation will be smarter than the previous one, or the student will be wiser than the teacher. Thank you for listening.